يا هلا 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 حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another edition of Let's Talk on this gorgeous Wednesday morning. On the show, we'll be crossing over to Cape Town and we'll be talking to Kamal Salasa. We'll also be looking at the history of the Bosmont Masjid Maulud. It's the event of the year as far as the Bosmont and the West Rand community are concerned. And we'll be looking at issues around how to support your children through disappointments and failure. That will be discussed with Dr. Ken Resnick. He is an educational psychologist and he'll be giving us all of those skills and tools to deal with our little ones when they possibly do not get a great report card or whatever it is that they're not achieving in. He'll be talking us through that. But right now we're crossing over to Cape Town and we are joined by Brother Kamal Salasa. He's from an organization called the Tawqeed Biotech. It's all about food technology, I guess, but let's hear what Kamal has to say. Assalamu alaikum, dear brother. Welcome to the program.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shukran for having me.
Lovely to have you on the show. And before we get to Tawqeed Biotech, who is Kamal and why is he involved in the food industry? And obviously to ensure that the foods that we are ingesting is pure, is clean, it's raw, and uppermost of all of that is that the food is halal.
Yes, indeed. Maybe just a brief background. I come from a background of food microbiology as well as method development in the scientific space. So what happened was we obviously, I think most of us came across the problem that might have happened within the halal industry where, things were mislabeled, things might have been our trust might have been a bit shaken in the last few years. So what happened was we decided, myself as well as a few other individuals, decided to come together and use our expertise for the halal industry, develop one thing to ensure that basically work with the halal certifiers in getting that going. So that's just a brief history about how we got involved in terms of the halal industry and halal food in general as well.
So how long are you running this company called Tawqeed Biotech, and what's the meaning of the word Tawqeed? It's an Arabic word which has a deep and a beautiful meaning.
I think the word Tawqeed is rooted in Arabic. It comes from the meaning of for assurance, which is basically what we're all about. It was initially for our own assurance, and then we thought, of course, science does have a role to play, especially today in terms of the complexity of the way food is made. I think it's important is people know what, or have some sort of feedback mechanism where they can know what's being put inside this food. So that's where the name came from.
So how long are you running Tawqeed Biotech, and who are the other role players involved with you?
So Tawqeed Biotech started in 2015, mainly as a research and development project. We got individuals from the Trust in Cape Town, the Center for Proteomics and Genomic Research, also based in Cape Town, and that basically gave us the leg start. We had world-class DNA testing technology as well as protein technology at our disposal. And also, we had the backing of some very good organizations in the Muslim community. And most importantly, had the backing of most of our halal certifiers in the Western Cape. So the Islamic Council of South Africa, as an example, we signed an MOU with the MJC as well, the Muslim Judicial Council, as well as Shura, Islamic Council, have also come on board for us to to start introducing the scientific test.
So Kamal, you're obviously not replacing ICSA or any other halal authority in the country. You're not there to take over their role. Your role is very clearly defined. How is it different from the other halal authorities that go out and certifies products that is good for halal consumption?
That's an excellent question. So what we've done is, of course, you make a very important point. We are not replacing any step within the halal process. The halal is a matter for our ulama and for those that know it. All that we've done is that we've recognized that in some cases there are opportunities for the food system to be circumvented in whatever way. You know, we unfortunately living in a time where money is more important oftentimes than the quality of the product that has to come through. And sometimes labels don't tell you exactly what you need, or people misuse labels. And our certifiers have basically felt the brunt of that in the past. So what we created is we created these tools for third-party verification, where the certifiers can extract scientific results out of a laboratory that works with some of the best standards to get results to ensure, even for the certifiers, that the halal marks aren't being misused. We can put it that way. So that's basically our role as a third-party verification step within the halal system. The halal certifiers have always had a hand in this, but what we've done is that we've taken it a step further in terms of developing tests specifically for those things that you might consider haram, and we also understand the certification process a little better, having been out on certification lands with some of the certifiers to understand where this might be best applied.
But I'm sure that that's not where your role stops. I'm more than certified in a broad reach. Apart from the halal industry, what sort of services would you supply to people outside of the halal food industry?
Yes, that's also quite important. So what's happened is that because we recognize that problems of food fraud, I think that is for us one of the key problems that we would like to face, because it relates to halal, but it also relates to everybody else. So food fraud, for example, will tell you that, in fact, food fraud costs the industry upwards of $10 billion per year. That's more than what illegal firearms cost, the cost of illegal firearms trade, or the illegal drug trade in cocaine. Combined actually. So you see there's a huge amount of food fraud happening in the industry where you don't know exactly what it is that you purchase. And we've seen some products cause people sickness and illness. That's the worst case scenario. You see people picking up products where they think they know what's inside the product, but cause the supplier doesn't exactly know where the product might have come from further down the supply chain. We don't know what might be in it. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to introduce some testing with respect to food fraud, especially when it comes to meat. We developed a meat test to test for 6 different categories of meat in one. It's the first in South Africa to be introduced at the price point that we are introducing it, and that's for the general market. We're also looking to assist cosmetic industry to make claims, for example, like you have products that are cruelty-free, don't have any animal products in them. We also think that's something where we can definitely contribute positively towards protecting the consumer. At the end of the day, that's our function, is to make sure that, or the function of a lot of our services, to make sure that the product label is honest, transparent, clear, and it tells you everything you need to know as someone that's buying it off the shelf.
Now, two things jump out at me. You talk about food fraud. It's the first time I hear a word like that. But of course, it speaks volumes, and it's telling us as consumers that we need to be more alert. We need to check our labeling, and what we don't understand on the labeling, we need to question, and we need to hold the manufacturers or the food suppliers accountable to that. My first question. The second question is issues around genetically modified foods. We know that the purists are up in arms about it, but on the opposite end of the spectrum, we are also told that this is the only way to be able to feed the masses in third world countries. So what's your stance on that, and how do we become more savvy consumers?
So I think there are two issues that you brought up. I think we'll could you just remind me of what the first one was?
It was how do we as consumers become more alert, and if we're not happy with what we see on the labeling or we don't understand, whom do we hold to account, and how do we ensure that manufacturers give us the correct information? That's
a very important question. So we have enforcement agencies. In the case of, for example, halal certifiers, if there are issues around halal and that there's a lot of dishonest, people are being dishonest around the halal product, the certifiers have the power to take away the halal certification and inform the community, and thereby they can economically hold them accountable in that way. We're also fortunate in South Africa that very recently the South African government has also stepped into this arena. So what they've done is they've introduced a piece of legislation that's called the Agricultural Product Standards Amendment Bill. And this will require that all manufacturers of food products, their claims on their labels, they have to prove it using third-party or independent people to come and test stuff. So people can't just get away with it as they used to. Now, this particular piece of legislation has not yet been enacted. It's still making its way to Parliament. But it's good to see that in the South African context, there is a recognition of that particular problem. The other side of the problem is, of course, that consumers need to have that information at hand. And yes, it is a slow process, and we have to also understand from the perspective of the consumer, these problems have never really concerned us. I think most of us take the view that if our certifiers or if it says so on the label, that's what it is. So we've always assumed that all our manufacturers are being completely transparent and honest. But I think we've learned some hard lessons. And I think in many ways, it's also up to the consumer to now, empower themselves with education in terms of food fraud and how it's actually being perpetrated in our food system. And in that way, hopefully organize around that. At SLP Biotech, what we want to do is provide a platform for that information to get out there. So we'd like to, if we find something that might be an issue, at the end of the day, that's all we are. We can only give the information. We're not an organization that can hold anyone really to account. But we can pass that information on to those that can, which includes consumers. The next part of your question had to do with GMOs and where we stand on that. So we are capable of developing tests to detect whether something is GMO or not. There's also a very comprehensive set of legislation around GMOs as well. But in terms of where we stand on that, in terms of how it can help and how it can't help, I think it's slightly outside of our scope of expertise. So we've heard the same things. The only thing that we believe, the place that we believe we add value is to make sure that you as a consumer can look at that and at the label and see whether there's GMOs or not, and make that decision based on information that you get from a trusted source on that particular issue. I hope that answers the question.
It does, thank you. My final question to you, as a concerned consumer, if we do find something untoward on a label and don't know whom to turn to, can we escalate to your organization, to Tawkeed Biotech? Would you be able to assist us or point us in the right direction?
Almost certainly. So if there is something untoward, in terms of what would, the way that it would be picked up generally is by certifiers implementing testing within, routine testing within their own processes, and indeed the information would be fed to us, and we report back to the certifiers, let them know, listen, there might be a problem or two. That is where we envisage the process to go. We are still a startup, so our impact has been a little bit limited. And the process is quite slow, so we would be able to, if for example, as a consumer, bring something to the lab to find out if there's something wrong and something's found to be wrong. We report it directly to the certifier, and when the APS act passes, we'll be able to use that legislative tool as well to ensure that something happens.
Great. We'll be watching the space. We'll be plotting you guys and seeing that you do have your eye on the ball, inshallah. Keep up the great work. Until the next time, Assalamu alaikum to you.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. And once again for having us.
My pleasure. That was Kamal Salasa from Tawkeed Biotech talking to us about this new company that's doing some amazing work, not only in the Western Cape, but I guess their reach is going to be far felt. Let's go for our first ad break. We're still going to be talking to Ken Resnick, Dr. Ken Resnick, about educational, psychological matters as far as children are concerned. And later on, we'll be talking to the Bosmont Masjid Committee about the Bosmont Maulud. And welcome back. We have Dr. Ken Resnick in studio with us. He's an educational psychologist. It's that time of year, and pretty soon, in a couple of weeks' time, our little darlings are going to be coming home with their report cards, and some of them are going to be very disappointed for whatever reason. Maybe they didn't study hard enough, maybe they just did not understand concepts, or whatever it is that went on or went wrong in their little worlds. They're going to be terribly disappointed if they don't come home with straight A's or a good enough report. So Ken's in studio to talk to us about how we deal with the disappointment of our children's poor reports and how we help them cope, because oftentimes I think it's the disappointment of the parents which is then passed on to the children, even if they had probably been okay with a bad report, because of our disappointment they then feel so horribly let down. Ken, good morning, welcome to the program.
Morning, thanks for inviting me.
Lovely to have you here again. We don't see you, and then when we do see you, we see too much of you, don't we?
Absolutely.
But of course, it's that time of year, and you've heard my introduction. It's going to be time very soon, in a couple of days and weeks' time, where you're going to have high excitement, and the opposite spectrum would be high disappointment. And I guess I would be correct in saying that how you deal with the disappointment of your little one, a poor report card or not doing well at sport or whatever the case may be, is going to impact that child positively or negatively.
100%. And are you talking about kids from grade 1 right through to matric?
I should imagine, and even uni students.
Yes, 100%. So I think what we've got to understand is that we want children to learn and to make the effort for themselves. But what seems to happen is they're working for the parent. They're working to please the parent. So the idea of parenting is to help the child ultimately realize learning is about him. What does he want to achieve? So parents need to ask a child, what would you like to achieve? If they say 40%, you got to, well, why are you choosing 40%? 40% is a choice. It means you don't listen in class. It means you don't learn. You're needing help all the time, and you're not focusing. Now, is 40% worth a PlayStation or worth watching TV? So you've got to put it to your child all along. The more you do for a child, the more they're having to sort of please you. They don't enjoy learning. The idea is they should be, human children are born to learn. We're born with a brain. We're born to learn, but unfortunately it's up to the adult to educate the child. But what is happening these days is that they don't feel they have to learn. They go to school often because they don't want to, and when they come home, somebody's going to teach them. So you've got more and more au pairs teaching children, more and more extra lessons, and the kids go there, there's hardly an improvement because they're not focusing or connecting with the educational curriculum or whatever they might be being taught, especially if they're playing a lot of iPad, a lot of TV. The last thing they want to do is learn. So from the learning perspective, if mom is helping them learn, if they've got to be helped to study, parents have to understand that little test room or the exam room, they're on their own. So they're going to get anxious. So even though they might feel well prepared, they've always had a little bit of assistance in assisting them to learn or helping them with their maths or testing them. But in that exam room, it's quite hostile. And they often just get very anxious, forget, etc.
We're talking about the child that doesn't apply him or herself, and we'll try and see why is it that you have that going on in his little life. But then you also have the very high achiever. What is that telling us about the two different children, the high achiever and the child that doesn't enjoy learning or doesn't enjoy applying himself enough at school to come home with the results that's going to make him and his parents feel good? What's going on with these two totally different children?
I think the child that's failing, not doing well, definitely has low esteem, very dependent on somebody always helping him, and more than likely being a bit overprotected by the parent, where the parent's doing too much for them, not allowing them to make choices, not allowing them to become independent. And the moment they're outside, that's the sort of scope of their parent or their home, they become quite insecure and they don't deal with their world that well. And once they get into that, let's call it a failure mode, they start believing they can't. So they don't even try because they feel they can't. And then, of course, they sent off for all sorts of assessments, maybe, all sorts of extra lessons. And the parents are never given assistance in how to deal with these children. And what is really concerning me now is that the moment the child now is showing anything in the classroom, whether it's a behavior thing or they're not mixing well, they're being assessed, but the parents are not being given any clue as to what their role is to deal with a child that might seem a bit sad, not seem motivated. And that is why when so many kids do go for extra lessons, but their marks hardly improve because the parents are not helped to understand their role in helping the child. So you can imagine your child goes for an assessment, and this is the latest trend, and you're told that he's very anxious and depressed. Now, how does a parent feel when their child is depressed? You're giving the child a huge amount of scope to manipulate. So the moment he doesn't want to do, I'm feeling sad, I need to play Xbox, that's going to make me feel better, I need to do the iPad, and we then allow them too much leeway to opt out. And that opting out is really a problem. And children today, and what I've observed, are often creating their own little world of PlayStation, of some type of fantasy where they don't have to deal with the real world of school. And the parent's going to be very anxious because they don't see an improvement. They go off for these therapies. The child hardly improves in terms of his motivation, self-esteem. Medication might help them focus, but it doesn't do anything for their motivation or for their will to want to learn.
Can a child like that be assisted in becoming a high achiever? And what is the difference between that child? You indicated self-esteem, so poor self-esteem issues. Are we then saying that the high achiever is a very confident child who has great self-esteem?
No, there's a difference. You get the high achiever that where the parents have expected, and they're conforming because they are bright and they're learning. A problem with a lot of these high achievers, a lot of the children, they get 10 distinctions in matric, don't make it in life. They just don't make it. Why? Because they've been doing this to make their parents proud. They've more than likely just done what their parents want them to do. And when they hit the bigger world, they're not even sure what choices, what careers they want to do. So, and they're often perfectionistic.
But what's driving them to be such high achievers? I mean, surely if I get 10 distinctions, I'm going to feel on top of the world.
Yeah, but you know,
apart from pleasing my parents.
Yes. Now, if I have to look at my step twins, what we better instill in them, the determination to want to do well. They average kids. When it comes to studying, they want to. We've never once told them they've got to go and learn. And we always ask them, you happy? And I've never seen determination like that. On the other hand, what you've got are kids that always do well, and they become perfectionistic. So in other words, if they get lower than 80%, they get into a state. So they then start putting a lot of pressure on themselves, and then their whole focus is doing well at school but not coping in life, because they become obsessive, compulsive. So there's a lot of disorders that can manifest with a high achiever in terms of the anxiety and everything else. So you've got different types of
However,
kids.
we're not generalizing, because there are high achievers who have got their story together. They have their self-esteem in place. They feel good about who they are, and they do make it in life.
Absolutely. And that's what you want. So one of the key indicators of success in life is grit and determination. Nobody knows what to tell the parents. How do you instill that? You're not born with it. It comes from a parent allowing a child, or to insist that a child, if he fails at something or doesn't do something well, he picks himself up and tries harder, not just gives up on a task. And it starts at a very young age. So the moment something is a little bit tough, okay, don't worry, sweetheart, play with this, play with that. That is one of our main the main job of a parent, and nobody's helping parents, is to ensure that when a child starts a task, he completes it, because they will always feel better rather, that when they've tried, seems hard, and all of a sudden they've done it. But the moment they can opt out and then do something else, they don't like that, they opt out, it filtrates into their learning, where that grit and the determination to want to do well is a problem, and you can see that early on. From my experience, virtually all children that are in these schools that offer for the learning kids with learning difficulties are very overprotected or very over-controlled. They can't work on their own, not because they can't, but because they've never had to. They've needed help, and there's nothing actually wrong with these kids. It's just their own insecurity and lack of belief in themselves to be able to do it on their own. And what's worrying me is that we focus on what kids can't do if they've got a problem, rather than what they can do, because kids are born with ability. We've all got a potential.
But Ken, the reality is that, and it speaks to what the comment you made right at the beginning of the interview, and that is that sometimes kids only do things to please their parents. The parents don't try and find out or explore what are my kids' strengths, or what are my kids' weaknesses. It's like that old Ottoman saying that don't teach a child to a school where they realize that they're not going to teach a fish to fly or a bird to swim. Yeah. So basically what it's saying is find out what are your child's strengths and weaknesses, and if that child is not an outright academic, then try and get him into a school or into a group that's going to speak to his talents, and by so doing he is going to excel. Yeah. That being said, I'd like you to respond to that, and also, is there anything, do you agree that, I've often heard, when I was growing up, I was told I'm a lazy child, I don't apply myself. Do you agree with that concept?
Well, laziness is a choice.
Okay.
You're not born lazy, it's a choice. And today lazy kids are diagnosed as having ADHD.
And lazy is also about not being interested in something. Exactly. It's not talking to you.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, children are not born lazy. So something has happened that's made them lazy, where too much has maybe been done for them. They get bored, they have to be entertained. They can't, I'm bored, they're opting out, and parents don't know how to deal with it. So what we've got to try and understand is that a child, for instance, as you mentioned, very good at X. But life is not only about doing X. True. So we've got to make the effort, like let's say English and Afrikaans or whatever. I hate Afrikaans. Wonderful. But you can't fail it. Or you can fail it. But why are you not trying? So at the end of the day, the child depends on a lot of help to get them through Afrikaans. I'm using that as an example. But they've got to say, you know what, I know I've got to get this. I'm going to try my best. And if he really makes the effort, can definitely pass and pass quite well. Life is about taking those challenges of stuff you don't like. Because the stuff you do like is wonderful. But you're going to be confronted with stuff that a job, I'm sure you know your job, you're terrific at some areas of it. I know when I first started teaching, I didn't know it had so much preparation, and I just couldn't handle that stuff, So it's about doing the preparation. It's about doing another subject. Why? Because you're going to need that mark to move further. So you can't just opt out of subjects you don't like in terms of school. So all we want is an effort to try your best. And if they can pass subject A, they can pass subject B with effort. And this is what we've just got to understand. Kids do have ability, but it's their whole approach to school, their whole approach to reading, to maths, to their subject. That is the problem. If they don't enjoy it.
The other important thing is that is us as parents, our approach to their disappointments, their failures and their achievements. Because oftentimes we feel so bad when they come home with a poor report card, or they didn't get the job, they went to this great job interview and they were putting all their hopes on getting that particular job, or not, coming right. Relationships just don't seem to work out. And our response to them is crucial. We often deflate them by saying the wrong things. If someone comes and didn't get that dream job, and you kind of say to them, don't worry about it, it wasn't meant for you. I'm not sure if people want to actually hear that.
No, absolutely. But
what is it that you ought to be saying?
It's not so much what you've got to be saying. Life is about disappointments. We've got to pick ourselves up and go for another interview so we can empathize with them. I know it must be terrible. Well, how do you feel about it? Ask him how he's feeling about it. If he just wants to give up and look for nothing else, then we've also not done our job, because that's one of our tasks, is to help kids when they have their disappointment to pick themselves up and be determined to try again. But if they're just going to give up, nothing works for me, I know any interview I go to, I'm not going to get the job, I know I can't do the subject well, they're telling you already.
A very negative outlook on life.
And we're doing something wrong. So we've got to try and go with their feelings as to why they feel like that, but in a calm way.
Okay, let's go for our first ad break. Dr. Ken Reznicki is an educational psychologist talking to us about how we prepare our children for disappointment and failures. It's the type of language we use when they come home with a poor report card or didn't get that dream job that they've been after for so long. More on this subject right after the ad break. Welcome back. Dr. Ken Reznicki is in studio talking to us about disappointments and failures in our loved ones and how to deal with it. Because obviously, if you don't respond in the way your loved one wants you to respond, I think the disappointment will run really deep and for a very long time. Ken, I think oftentimes we deflate our loved ones by the type of responses we give them when they come home with a disappointing story. And oftentimes I think we're responsible for them being in that situation that they're in. Let's talk about it. Let's unpack it.
Okay. I think for instance, if you've got a child that every term their parents are expecting, like, let's say 70%, exams become a nightmare for them, because instead of being totally relaxed and learning, they know if I don't get 70%, I know my dad's going to be shouting at me, I know my mom's going to be disappointed, they're going to cut my cell phone, they're going to cut my TV, whatever the case is. So we generate, without being aware of it, a lot of anxiety if we've sort of threatened the kid, I want you to get 70%. And if you don't, well, now he's got to go relaxed into an exam room, when his study technique might not be okay. His reading efficiency might not be okay. In other words, the skills that he needs to learn, he just doesn't have them as yet. And we're missing that, because kids can read, but a lot of them don't want to. So learning is about reading. So if he's battling, he can't read, disorganized, study skills, he's going to just give up. But he's going to have that extra stress. They might come home and lie to their parents. No, I think it well, Mom. I think I've done well, etc. Comes that report, wow. So there's this constant state of anxiety because mom or dad have expected something. Okay,
so let's get to that point and let's dig deeper. So he comes home with a report which is not great. Let's assume it's his matric report. What is, how do we respond? And we also know that this time of year, very especially amongst matric and uni students, if they have failed or if they've done very poorly, we've had over the years very sad cases of these youngsters committing suicide. We don't want to push them over the edge, but we also need them to know that this was just not good enough.
No, we need to know why we've got it wrong. We need to try and understand why they're choosing to not learn. Why is it so hard not to learn, etc. And try and understand what we might have done to create that. Why do we have to tell kids to go and study? Why do we have to kids? You're going to sit in that room for 2 hours, and if you don't come out, there's going to be no cell phone. Why do we have to have that role? We need to ask them, why are you choosing to get 40%? I just want to understand, because it doesn't make sense to me. Are you happy with 40%? If they give you, you're happy, all right, then I want to know what you're happy about. So,
And if they say they're happy, what do you,
Would you
as a parent, do you say to them,
no,
okay,
no.
fine?
No.
Do you accept it?
No. This is exactly how I deal with kids like this. I say, okay, I'm fair. Parent, I'm fair. Do you think 40%, there are two things. If a kid's at a private school, you might as well spend your money at a government school that fees are nothing, because you can't spend at a fancy private school 40%. It also means he doesn't like the school. I say to the child, often I speak to them, and they're at a fancy private school, and I say, well, are you happy with 50%? No, it's okay. I say, but do you think that it's fair on your dad that he's got to pay huge fees for 40% here, when at a government school, a cheap government school, the mark means exactly the same when you leave school? I'm asking you, is that fair? I then also say to them, is it then fair, if you're not making the effort, that you should have the cell phone, that you should have the PlayStation? I'm asking you, is it fair? It's not fair. So you're putting it to the child all the time to let him understand, you're not angry with him, but you got to be fair. You're the person that's allowing him all these, whatever they are that he's got. He's got to know that those are privileges. The TV, the iPad are privileges. If he's not going to make an effort, what are the consequences? But you've got to put it to him in a way that he takes more responsibility rather than hears this lecture, the big threat. He sort of closes his ears, waits for the tsunami to pass, and then hopes for the best in the next exam. And then the same things happen. So it's just the way we approach kids, because they are definitely making a choice.
All right, so you've painted the scenario beautifully. You put it to the child. He's going to explain. He's going to then go away being even more disappointed at himself because he's now let you down. You spent all this money on his education. Is he going to be okay? How do you ensure that he's going to be okay and not self-harm, number one? And number two, if he says he's okay with it, you know, he doesn't want to become a rocket scientist, there's really nothing you can do to make him change his mind, is there?
No, but you can't then carry on giving him all these privileges. So, you know, what you mentioned are quite a few scenarios. A child that's a bit suicidal is definitely, you will have observed that child not having too many friends, tending to isolate herself in a room, maybe spend a lot of time on social media, not connecting or communicating well with parents. The parent's going to see, maybe made to go and see a psychologist, and in the meantime, the parent's getting more and more anxious, maybe making more and more demands. So we've got to look at always that relationship. Kids are, again, not born depressed, but those signs are there for parents to see. And we can either ignore them, or we say, what's wrong with you? Why don't you go out? You're always sitting in your room. And instead of trying to find why they're making those choices, what is happening? It's what's happening in their world that they're not coping with, either socially, with their friends. Girl might find all her girlfriends seem to get on with boys. She doesn't have the skills. She's being isolated. Her world is crumbling. And then she's got the pressure of having to deal with, let's say, a parent that's pressurizing her. So her world loses meaning in terms of what is she living for? You know, I'm not coping at school, my marks. My friends are just not there for me, and my parents are upset with me. So their whole world tends to collapse. And then what do? We send them to psychologists. And I can tell you, teenagers do not enjoy going to psychologists. So we've got to try and understand the child in his world, because that's the world that he's got to go out into every day is a difficult one if they're having social issues, or if they're being pushed out of a group, or if they might be teased on social media. And we're not in touch with all of that, because that world it's a terrible world. And parents are not in touch with that at all. I don't think we know what goes on social media, but then we threaten them. We catch them on this and that. But at the end of the day, they're battling to deal with their world. I know my girls have said to me that so many of their friends are depressed. You know, they've just passed grade 11. They're having clashes with their mom. they're just not feeling good about themselves. You know, they don't get any meaning what their world is about. There's a lot of pressure coming from home. So we've got to have our children communicating with us. We there as a comfort for them, but instilling the discipline, instilling all of that at the same time. Not somebody that's just going to feel sorry for them. We've got to get them to try and stand on their feet, to try again without the big lecture. And so we've got to understand that the ability's there. But if I can just go back as well, if a child's not doing well at school, more than likely he's not reading. Now, as I explained earlier on, I do reading, and I've just had a little kid now, grade 3. The mom's been told he's not doing well at school. He was a year in with some reading person. Nothing was improving. Then she started thinking, I know my husband's got dyslexia in his family. My parents have got that. So she's already writing him off. This little kid came. He was bouncing all over the place. But anyway, we got him sorted out because he had to read in order to earn any TV time. You will not, in 3 months, he's a different child. And from this anxious mother that's convinced he might have dyslexia, because that's a word they throw around as well, this little guy can. He was just choosing not to. So kids don't enjoy reading, and if they're not going to enjoy it, how can they study? It's a simple example.
So we're also talking boundaries here.
And skills.
With boundary skills, but without being overly punitive.
Exactly.
Because what does that do to a child? If you threaten and you're very punitive, is that child going to shut down? Is that child going to rebel? Or is that child going to then possibly, because he is so scared out of his wits, become a high achiever?
Okay, didn't know. Doubtful there, unless he's been brought up like that, very controlled, where the parents are making sure there's no space, he's got to achieve, they're helping him, they're on him all the time. But what is a child's choices when the parents don't give him a choice? He's actually still got a choice. He's got 2 choices. He can say, okay, mommy, no, mommy, 3 bags full, mom, and just become a doormat, not cope with life, or he can tell parents to get lost. None of those are good choices.
What age are we talking
Hello?
about?
You can talk, these days, it's
Yeah,
starting
can you hear me?
right at a young
You see,
You know, and I'm just using, if you take the Afrikaans community from my experience, the old days, the dad boy, he was strict. They couldn't budge, etc. Things have changed because moms have become quite protective to that type of parenting, and then the kid is under the mom's little umbrella, and the dad's doing his mind, and the kids are impossible, you know, because they know they can get away with it. They're being able to manipulate, etc. Because especially now that, you know, there's no hitting, a lot of shouting, and it's the shouting and screaming which is happening in most homes that causes a lot of insecurity for kids because we don't know what to say to them. Mm-hmm. So the idea is to understand our role properly, and that is my biggest concern because that's got worse. Because we love our kids, we do our best for them. It's actually a job. But nobody's telling us how to do this job.
We love them way too much, don't we?
We love them too much, and they're not toys.
Right. So I've talked about boundaries as well, and I've talked about, is that going to create a rebellious child?
Or a very submissive child. Mm-hmm. It could be either or. There's no guarantee what it could create. But the submissive child, how's he going to cope with life? Everybody's going to walk all over him.
But for now, in the teenage years, as far as the parents are concerned, that's the best, that's the jackpot for them. Because here's this child just acceding to all of their demands and being very submissive. But what we don't realize that when he goes out into the world, he's not going to cope.
Exactly, that's exactly what I'm saying. A lot of these kids that have got their 10 distinctions just don't make it enough. Because that's all they've worked for, is to please their parents. They also need varsity, the much bigger world that's not so structured as school. Again, socially, they could have all sorts of problems because they're the SWAT. They're not quite sure if they're doing the right career because a 10 distinction child can do any career. But then they don't have the passion. They don't want to know because they're waiting for their parents to tell them maybe what career they do.
All right, let's go for another ad break. When we come back, let's talk about the type of language we use with our children. Do assessments work? Are we using the right assessment tools with our children? And when do you decide your child needs to be assessed? And a whole host more. So don't go away. We're still going to talk to Dr. Ken Resnick for a little while longer, and hopefully your child's going to school for the first year, next year, the type of things you need to be ready, not only with the child, but yourself as well. So we're talking school readiness tests for you as a parent and for your little one as well. And in the final segment with Dr. Ken Resnick, we're looking at the type of language we use with our children, and are the assessments, school-ready assessments, are they serving us well here in South Africa? The type of language that we engage in with our children, it doesn't matter the age. Let's assume little kids and possibly a little older ones, the teens, when they come home with a poor report card or any disappointment in their life. How do we start engaging with them?
That's a huge problem that we have. We tend to talk down to kids and we tend to lecture to kids. So you must remember, a child's dependent on us to always be in charge, to be calm, to deal with any situation. They won't understand when you fly off the handle why you're so angry. So as an example, kids are making choices all the time. Allow them to make a choice. I don't want to go to school. Funny choice. You don't have to go to school, but it's a law. So you've got two choices. You can go and ask the principal, tell him you don't want to go to school, and ask him if you can stay at home. Or actually, if you want to ask a policeman, ask him if you're allowed to stay at school. It's your choice, and you stay calm. Okay, they will go to school. They're certainly not going to talk to the principal, but you're not cross. I don't want to eat my food. Strange choice. You don't want to eat your food? Fine, I don't have a problem. But it means you just want to play in your room. They get hungry later, kitchen's closed. Tough, but they said to you they don't want to eat your food. You're not angry, but you carry through what they had chosen. And they go to bed hungry. They're not going to starve to death, but they made the choice. The next morning they wake up. You can just say to them, listen, I just want to know, are you going to have supper tonight or rather play in your room and no supper? Mm-hmm. They will have supper. Right. So we've always got to let them know you can make the choice, but this is what it means. And it works brilliantly. If we can use this one other quick example, a child doesn't want to brush his teeth. Well, I had a funny example here with, he was an older child and I work on a pocket money system. And then the mom tells me he doesn't want to bath every night or shower. So I said to him, all right, but we've got a choice. You get free water if you shower every day or bath. If you miss a night, you're going to pay 20 Rand for a shower the next night. If you miss the second night, it's going to be 40 Rand.
Right.
I said by the third night you could be smelling, which means you'll have to eat alone in the kitchen. You think about it. And the kids showered. So there's no lecturing, no shouting. You're putting it to the child and they'll make the choice. Because when you tell a child what to do...
Okay. How does this concept work when my child comes home with a very bad report or not as good as expected report card? He is very disappointed and my response is going to either crush him or possibly make him feel a little better about himself, and then he'll resolve to do better the next time around.
They always say that. What does better mean?
So how do I interact with him?
First of all, you've got to have a look what has been going on before. He's either in extra lessons, he's doing all sorts of things where he's having to learn a lot because we want him to do better, but he's not really wanting to go to extra lessons. Children generally don't enjoy extra lessons, so we have an expectation. We're spending this money on extra lessons, whether it's maths and this, there's a disappointment. Something's wrong. A child one-on-one can learn, but how engaged is he with that subject? And how good is that extra lesson teacher? For instance, maths. If they're going to sit there helping the child where the child doesn't have to persevere and do it on his own, every child can learn.
But how do I interact with this child? Not to push him over the edge.
No, you don't. But you've got to, first of all, he's not making an effort at school. He's got to be encouraged to work on his own. You don't help the child. He's got to make the effort. There's a trend what's happening today where children are coming home and they can't do their maths. And parents are then helping him. He hasn't listened in class. So I say to parents, if he comes home and he can't do this, he hasn't listened. What he's got to do the next day...
So is that what I say to my child?
Exactly. Say, listen, your teacher taught you this today. Tomorrow, you're going to ask your teacher. You're going to ask your teacher on your own. Then tomorrow night, if they get stuck with one or two problems, that's fine. Okay,
a minute to wrap up time. I just want to cut to the chase. What do I say to my child with a bad report card?
I think you've got to look at what you've done and why. Because it didn't just end up a bad report card. Something's been happening throughout that
term. But I do need to say something to him.
No, you just say, my boy, I just want to understand what happened. Ask him what happened in the exam, why he thinks he got a bad report card. Because he more than likely was anxious in the exam. There were expectations. He went in there not relaxed. He was alone in that exam room. He didn't have anybody there to make him feel safe. There are all sorts of reasons.
That's where we have to leave it, sorry. Okay. Well, there you have it. It's about going back and checking where you've gone wrong and where your child has gone wrong. And you're going to have to deal with the situation to the best of your ability and perhaps get him or her to resolve to do better the next time around. I think as a family, family unit, you need to kind of look deeper and just try and understand what has gone wrong in the past few months, and together as a family you need to come together again. We haven't gotten to the assessments part, but hopefully we'll get Ken in the new year to talk about school readiness. Right now we're going for an ad break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Bosmont Masjid Maulud. And welcome back. We have two gents in the studio with us. It is, of course, Brother Don Matera, who's no stranger. He's been here a couple of times. And we also have Brother Shafiq Naidu. They're here to talk about the mass Maulud that's going to be held in Johannesburg. I have referred to it throughout the show as the Bosmont Maulud, but there's a reason for that. I think it's going to be held at the Bosmont Masjid and the grounds. I hope I'm not wrong. Let's hear what the brothers have to say. Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the program.
Wa alaikum assalam. This is actually going to be held at the Nuclear Juma Masjid and Educational Institute. It's actually a mass maulid, which Nuclear is actually 100 years old this year, centenary.
Course, yes.
So the whole year we've been having events going through the year. And we thought we'd actually close it off with a mass maulid. And in this, what we've done is actually we've invited people from Cape Town, Kimberley, Durban, what we would call the Machawas is actually the Mozambican and Malawian guys also invited.
Mashallah.
And then we have a lot, so we're looking at about nearly 4,000 people attending this event.
Are you going to be able to accommodate that many people? Are the grounds huge enough?
Yes, it is. It's actually taken us a whole year, but the nicest thing about everything is the team that we work. We've broken this actually up into sections as far as the breakfast will be done by Bosman. The lunch would be actually Annandale. What we call, in Muslim and Slumsa we would actually have the barakats, and that's done by Aldos.
So that as the people leave, they get their barakah packets. Is that?
They get a barakats packets and they get a present, and we actually say thanks to them. And then the dinner or the supper, whatever you want to call it, that would actually be done by Nuclear. So Nuclear hosts this whole thing. What we're going to do is we actually
It's a huge undertaking.
It is, but what we've done also is last year we had it in Aldos. The year before that we had it in Bosman, where you guys were also there in Bosman. And with this year, last year we had it in Aldous, and we're going to do it exactly the same, march through the streets. Now this whole idea is actually, Maulud is actually a big thing in Indonesia, Malaysia, India, all those areas. It's ginormous. In Indonesia, I couldn't believe when I saw the amount of people. I was totally shocked with the amount of people that you actually see there. Yeah, it's not that big, but yes, it's growing.
Alhamdulillah, we know that this time around with Rabi al-Awwal, all around the world, including in the UK, they've had mass mauluds. They've had it in open arena, in stadiums, etc.
You're right.
So Alhamdulillah, it's really become huge all around the world. Brother Don Matera, you'd like to say something?
Well, I think that it's the first time that I would be in Nuclear. I think the important thing is that we are preparing the children of tomorrow.
Absolutely.
We are investing in the children of yesterday to help the children of tomorrow.
And if we don't share these traditions on them, it's going to be lost.
Yes.
We need to place high importance on such functions and gatherings.
Quite so.
Otherwise, as it is, we're way too westernized. Would you
You're
like
right.
to?
No, you're right.
Yes,
Like Pa
yes.
said, when we were speaking about the spa, he actually said to me, well, I say dad because my father, my dad, and we were speaking, and he said, Shafiq, you got to look at kids. So therefore, this whole thing is only about kids. We have on the Friday night, we have an event where we actually have what we call a commis, which is actually going to be like a event actually happening on the concert on the Friday night, and that would be at the Bosman, where we have kids from Kimberley coming to actually have recitals.
MashaAllah. Quranic recitals.
Yes, and we have a whole lot of people that actually, and that's what we said, like Pa said, we have to start now investing in the kids. And even the opening dua would actually be done by a youngster.
MashaAllah.
So all this is just actually bringing youngsters into this whole thing. Like you said, we're actually going to lose it if we don't invest in it.
And they are our future leaders anyway.
Quite so.
Why do you believe this is, apart from the fact that we don't want to lose the traditions, the beauty about these Mawluds and people watching us this morning, why should they be attending?
Well, I think it's investment, ma'am. We have to look at how we can invest in our communities, how we can show that we have compassion, that we care about the child next door that's not eating, the child who's not at school. We are here to bring a consciousness to our people that our Prophet, peace be on his name, and the one before him, Nabi Isa alayhi salam, were mad for children. They were mad for children. And then along the line, who is going to be the next Muslim imam? Their child.
True.
So the investment in the child, in the child's mind, the child's heart, will also keep the child's soul burning. The poetic thing that I am looking at is we are saying to the people, this life is a race. And in this race, there is no place where you can brag that you have won. There's no place where you can get trophies and whatever. It's on your marks, get set. Before you go, take somebody, especially a child, with you.
Sadly, that brings to mind the African adage which says it takes a village to raise a child. We seem to have forgotten that, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
We've become way too westernized, and it's each man for himself and God for all. How does this then instill that beautiful adage into the lives of us as Muslims and human beings?
You know, what actually happened was, you know, in this Mawlud, because Mawlud is actually poetry, and the Arabs were actually very good in poetry. And, you know, if we really understand Arabic, it is beauty how the one group asks a question and how the other group reply and answer. In poetry. And, you know, we talk about Romeo and Juliet, but I tell you, if you actually understand the Mawlud properly and everything, it is so beautiful the way they actually go. Now you would actually find that a lot of the kids at Nuclear this year only started is actually doing the Ashrakal. And that, they learned it so quick. And I was amazing. I said, sure, but look at those kids actually learning it quick. But also, you know, the Yasin, the Tabaraks out of the Quran, how quick they learned it. And they have that power. And Paul was even saying when they were going, you know, getting that vibe and getting that in. Now, it is better to have those kids there than on the corner.
Oh, absolutely. Let's go for our first ad break. We're talking about the mass Mawlud that's going to be taking place in Nuclear, the Nuclear Masjid. And the expected turnout, inshallah, is about 4,000 people. We're going to ask when it's taking place. Is there any registration involved? Who should be attending? You and I as Muslims should be attending, and all of the other logistics around this amazing event. Don't go away.
Thank you. Beautiful.
And it is the Mubarak month and celebration, Rabi al-Awwal, the month of our beloved Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And of course, we are talking about the mass Mawlud right here in Johannesburg. It's the to be at event, inshallah. And Shafiq Naidu and Don Matera in studio talking about this amazing event starting this weekend. Shafiq, you need to give us the rundown.
Well, we're starting actually to do a march from one of the streets that's about nearly 200 meters coming down to the mosque.
All the children, I imagine.
All the children. Children will be in the flats.
Yeah.
in the houses, and as this parade comes down, would they actually follow down into this group coming down the mosque?
And I assume they're going to dhikr as they go along.
All of them are going. Well, the groups are going to be. You have the Cape Townians last year that were dhikkering in the roads, and the people in El Dorado Park were so amazed. They even loved it. They asked, why didn't we come back there? And we said, no, we can't, because of the centenary of nuclear. So they'll be dhikkering right down, going down the road, right to the mosque. And that's where our hearts are supposed to be, at the mosque. So we're going right down there. And then you would find children coming from all other way. And this young girl, I think she's about 10 years old, and she'd actually ask, Labbaik. And then they'll all come down into it, going down into the mosque. But right at the back, you would actually have the machawas, because they have a dhikr and they hit drums and they come down this way. So they have with the bar like that.
Gooseflesh moments. Okay. Shafiq, how come you're involved with this event?
It's actually because of my son. He actually asked me, I was a chairman once of the mosque, and he asked me if we could actually start the mawlid, and I said yes. But then I thought, why do we have mawlids all over the place? It's a good one, we can have it, but we should have one completely. To bring unity, to bring communities and everybody together.
Why do we go to mosque? Why do we have that prescription to go to mosque 5 times a day? For the community to grow together, to support each other, to love each other.
But I'd like you to be there, and
Inshallah.
I'm telling you, I'm inviting you, and I'm challenging you, and I'll tell you why.
Inshallah.
When you sit there and you watch how people that have not seen people for some long time actually says, Bibi, and you hear them jabbing and them talking, and everybody comes out with their, what we would call madorans, their outfits, they're nice. And the kids, we're going to have kids right in front with outfits. Like you actually in Malaysia, Indonesia, well dressed with flowers and all that.
Well, what I do want to add to that is that we prepare for a wedding or any other big event in our lives, and we really dress to the nines. We spend lots of money in looking our best. And why should we not look our best on the birth of our beloved Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? And having said that, talk to us about the tradition of the rampis cutting, because I think it is amazing. Please explain that to us.
You know, a guy from London last year, London and Canada, phoned me and said that he immigrated from South Africa to London, but he's never ever seen the ukar, what they call the ukar, when the ladies put the leaves and they put the
orange
and
blossom,
all that.
Yes.
He says he's never. Last year we shot it directly, and he says, you know, I've never ever. Now I know what it's all about. And you must see when these ladies make the dua, how they cry and weep. They weep because now they actually take the ukar. And it's so nice because now the kids also start jikkering in it too.
All right, just explain that for people who've never been exposed to a rampis cutting ceremony.
Well, what happens is during the whole course of the day, they cut the orange
leaves.
The lemon leaves.
Lemon leaves.
So we actually collect all that.
And that smell
fragrance. Nice. That fragrance is actually, you know, like the scent is coming from Dubai tomorrow.
Right, okay.
They're scenting that scent now. Now just imagine how far do we go to get all these things.
Alhamdulillah.
And then they start putting it on, and then they burn it out now with agarbatti and all those things, the scents. And then they take it and they give it to the men. The men in return jikr on it, then they bring it back, and the ladies start folding it. And then the lady's supposed to come and put it on to the men. And that would actually smell for months and months and months. But everybody goes out for that thing. And it's also, you know, it's to unite our people. The unification, it's actually so important. And I must be honest with you, I've got a great team, and all we do after that is sit and we just get that joyful.
And just remember our beloved Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
You can't.
Brother Don, what do you have to say to that?
Well, I think that it is definitely great. And also, the other thing that we want is to show what we can give and what we get. There are great people that support us. There are great people that give money, give food, give everything. It is not just us in nuclear. it is everyone.
It's a community effort.
No, it's a community effort, yeah.
Do you want to mention a few of the people that have come on board to support this amazing event?
Well, one of our biggest is actually Gift of the Givers. Those guys every year, I'm telling you, without a fail, they're the guys. We just click like that and they're there. The Akalwai is in Fordsburg too.
Oh.
I mean, that guy, I just walk in and he says, can I have your list? That's all he does. Can I have your list? We got a company also that actually came on board now with that's actually giving trophies and all that, Kwaha Holdings.
Yes.
You know, so a whole lot of companies have actually just come
Nuclear
in,
Muslim boy.
Yeah, and a whole lot of people have actually just come in. You would actually find, I was amazed. Let me be honest with you. You get our halas and our umis, all that, coming with their 200 rand. This is for the maulid. This is for the maulid. Now just imagine.
Now, we've got about 2 minutes to wrap up time. Let's talk about logistics in terms of, you've indicated that the different communities are going to do the different preparation of the foods,
yeah.
breakfast, lunch, supper, and also the baraka gifts.
Yes.
What sort of planning goes into all of that? I mean, you're planning for 4,000 people approximately.
Well, we started already a year ago, where we actually have everything logistically prepared. We got people that actually do their day jobs that are actually managers and all that, and at night they burn the light. But each group does its own. Bossman would come in, do the breakfast, then they move out. Annadale would come in, they'll actually do the lunch, they'll move out. Nuclear would come in, they'll do the dinner. Then you would actually find elders coming in, they actually give the people barakats and all that, and then they go.
And it's running over 2 days?
One day it's actually there, and then it's going to Ashikin in Florida, Maritzburg, which is actually the following day. So all these Cape Townians, Kimberley, from
the visitors,
Durban, all the visitors, including everybody, would actually be going from there to Ashikin.
And where about in Florida is that? And what can we expect on that day?
They're 9th. Exactly the same what you got on the Saturday, you'll actually get on the Sunday.
Okay. Closing words from you, Brother Don.
Yeah, well, we are grateful to Almighty Allah that we can do what we do, but the woman of that area is something that you have to watch and see. So they are fantastic. When they come to his house, and you could just hear the giggling, the laugh, and all of that. So, Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Planning, was there any challenges in putting this event together?
Well,
you've got lots of people involved.
No, we got a lot of people involved. The ones that also is actually the committee from Nuclear. They actually come on board to actually come out with the tent, scraping the place, getting the mosque into peak condition. So yes, it does. Without anybody, and this is where I'm telling you, I've never seen no man wash his face with one hand. You have to put our hands together.
Right, absolutely. It's 2 days to the actual event. Today is Wednesday. The event starts on Friday. Is there anything else that you still perhaps need to be in place that you'd like to make the appeal by way of the show?
No,
Alhamdulillah.
Well, with these guys, you can't go wrong.
Gift of the givers.
You can't go.
Yes.
You can't go wrong. They're fantastic. I tell you, the whole team. You know, Uncle Roslyn, the whole team. Father and
okay, closing words from you, Brother Don Matera.
No,
as always.
We are really, like me, Don Matera. I've not been to other maulids, but I've passed. This one is unlike any other.
Why?
Why? Because of the children. Nabi Isa alayhi salam said, if you touch one and you hurt one child, it were better for you not to be born. But if you love and give children what they need, you have opened the gates of heaven.
Alhamdulillah. Closing words from you, Shafiq.
We're looking for you to be there, and we're looking for everybody to be there. And we're very excited. Our guys that are flying out tomorrow, and on Friday morning, the Cape Townians, all of them. And I think our people are actually standing open arms to welcome them.
And I presume all the visitors are being accommodated by the local people.
Yes.
All of them.
No
All
hotels
of
or
them.
anything,
All
local
of
people. Do
them.
it like we used to do it in the old days.
You got it. You got it.
Shukran very much for being here. May
We
Allah
must
subhanahu wa
actually say
ta'ala
shukran to
bless
you.
this amazing event.
Shukran.
I know it's going to be a huge success, inshallah.
Allah.
And may the community grow from strength to strength.
Inshallah.
Let this be
Inshallah.
the start of the coming
Coming
together
together.
of the Muslim community as a whole.
Inshallah.
Yes, yes.
Shukran. Keep it
Assalamu
up.
alaikum.
And that's where we leave it. An event to be looking forward to this weekend in New Clare and in Florida. It starts Friday evening. It will be happening, the big event on Saturday in New Clare, the New Clare Masjid, and then they move on to Florida on Sunday. So if you miss out one of the days, there's always, the next day to make up. But please try not to miss out. It is the event to be at, the Mass Maulud right here in Johannesburg. And as I've indicated earlier on, we know that these Mass Mauluds from the beginning of Rabi al-Awwal have been playing out all around the world. I was heartened to see the mass gathering in the UK at a football stadium of all places. So alhamdulillah, let us band together and make this a success. And that's where we leave it. I hope to see you at the Maulud, inshallah. Till Saturday, as always, please take care on the roads. A big thank you to the production team. And from me, Julie Ali, as always, it is Assalamu alaikum and Khuda Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz, mashallah, baby.
قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا، حني قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا.